Village Square Africa, now showing Monday to Thursday, 2 p.m. West African time and 4 p.m. East African time.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a Carter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign hectares. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV. Stories that put Africa first.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. In case you're just tuning in, you're well in time for our top stories, and we're starting now with Uganda. The Ugandan government is carrying out a fresh payroll audit to determine the exact number of civil servants it employs and to find out exactly how much it should be paying in salaries. The audit being carried out by the Auditor General comes after many district and government agencies reported wage shortfalls this financial year, forcing many workers to miss salaries for months.
Well, it comes after an earlier audit had revealed that billions of shillings have been lost in questionable salary payments. Uganda's Public Service Minister Wilson Muruli Mukasa says the Ministry of Finance has undertaken an audit of this exercise and is scrutinizing the payroll so that they can get accurate figures of people on the payroll. The exercise is meant to be completed before the financial year closes in June. Well, joining us now is Ugandan journalist from Midwest Uganda, Hoima to be precise. Layla, thank you so much for being here. Layla, I hope you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you so much for being here. Let's go straight into this. Why the audit all of a sudden, and why is this imperative? Let's put it that way.
Yes, basically, government wants to find out how much money does it spend on salaries for public servants, because John Mwanga, it found out that 19 billion shillings had been lost in 129 local governments to ghost workers and people who were overpaid, while others were not paid actually the amount they were supposed to be paid. Some were given least amounts of salary. So a 19 billion shillings loss of taxpayers' money means quite a lot to the Ugandan government. And when you look at where we get our funds as the government, most of this is borrowed money. And so Parliament is even tired of supplementary budgets that are coming in. Last week, the Ministry of Local Government tabled in a supplementary budget request of 401 billion shillings to ensure that it clears the wage bill for some of the civil servants that are not being given their salaries. Last year, we will all get to know that a number of public servants, especially the teachers, were complaining that they had missed out salary for several months. So now the Auditor General comes up and says, no, it is time for the government to really conduct a fresh payroll audit to get to know how much money does it spend on salaries of public servants across the country, and how many people are they really paying? Because you find that even people who passed on as public servants, their accounts are still getting salary. Even those who were recruited in a manner that is really not clear are getting salaries. Some of even the officials get higher salaries than what they are supposed to get. So that is why the Auditor General now wants to come up and make this fresh payroll audit.
Leila, this is not the first time we're hearing about this. Like you mentioned, there had been a reported case of 19 billion shillings lost in sketchy and suspicious salary payments. Let's talk about the investigation. Were there any investigations carried out the previous time? And has anyone or any group of people been pinpointed as being held accountable for this? Has anybody been made to be held accountable for this, and has any punishment been meted out as a result?
No. It has actually not happened in the past that anyone has been held liable for these mistakes. Audits are being carried out and reports are coming out. And they are tabled even before Parliament, even before the President, and all these officials get to know about what is happening. But surprisingly, nothing is being done. But we are all watching and seeing what is going to happen this time when a fresh audit is conducted. Because the Inspectorate of Government, the IGG, recently came up and said that almost 50% of public servants in Uganda, the way they were recruited is really needs a lot of investigations, because most of them are not qualified. Most of them are relatives to officials in the Public Service Commission, from the District Service Commissions and all that. So some of these issues have been there, and reports are tabled, and surprisingly nothing is being done. But this time we hope when the Auditor General comes up and says, yes, let's do this audit, and Parliament this time is trying to be a little bit strict, as well as the President, when it comes to corruption and the loss of taxpayers' money. So we will give them a benefit of doubt and wait and see what is exactly going to happen. But previously, even though these audits have been carried out, we've not seen the results of anyone being held liable or accountable to the loss of taxpayers' money.
All right, now we haven't seen this happen before. But are there any hopes or expectations that with, like you said here, 19 billion shillings lost in about 129 local governments? We also found that the Auditor General found 609 secondary school and tertiary institution employees under the Education Service Commission who used forged minutes to access the government payroll. Now, that is something that has been found. More reports and more investigations still being carried out. Are there hopes that when this investigation is carried out and concluded, that a report will be published and that some people will be made to be held accountable? Because this is taxpayers' money that is being used wrongfully. This is a case of fraud. So are there people that will be made to be held accountable for this?
Yes, I'm sure this time people will be made held accountable for this. I'll give an example. In one of the districts called Kagadi in the Midwestern region, there were a recruitment of public servants was conducted, and then a number of whistleblowers came up and said, no, the process wasn't straightforward, and there was a lot of fraud and bribery, corruption, the buying of jobs within. So the first minister for public service, as well as the third minister for local government, Victoria Rusoke, came up and conducted an investigation. Then they had to display all the names of officials who had been recruited, especially the parish chiefs, who never met the criteria that was needed. And so they even forced the district local government to re-advertise. So it gives hope when such an example is there, that probably even this time those who accessed the payroll with forged minutes will be held liable, and they are going to be scrapped off the government payroll. So it gives us some little bit of hope as Ugandans.
I want to say thank you so much, Leila, for joining us and giving us a detailed analysis, most importantly sharing with us what Uganda is doing. We hope that we'll get an update as soon as the audit is indeed carried out. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's move away now from Uganda. Let's go to southern part of Africa. Let's go to Zambia, where a critical shortage of Zambia's staple food has hit parts of the country, with consumers queuing up as a result on inadequate supply. Zambia Finance and National Planning Minister Situmbeko Mosokotwane, responding to his shortage, this shortage says that government has decided to take on maize meal imports and also to allow for the imports as well.
Dr. Musokotwane says the SI has lifted all taxes and other fees for maize imports to allow the private sector bring in maize into the country. He said this during the sidelines of the ongoing Springs meeting of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C. Now, this morning, joining us to talk about this is Zambian economist Kelvin Chisanga. Good morning, Kelvin, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now let's talk about Milli Meal. We understand that it is, in some cases, the second most important staple in your country, and we've seen that there has been an immense shortage. Now, what exactly is the cause of this shortage, regardless of the several information we're hearing as regards the soil and the rain? Can you give us like an idea as to what exactly is causing this shortage and how bad it is?
Well, to begin with, the shortage has got so many complementary issues that I can actually put on the table. Obviously, we are coming from a point where we have just made a new system in terms of governance system for Zambia. Last year, we had some bit of changes that were taking place in the procurement of farming input, and also a lot of things that actually really happened as well. So to begin with, I would say Zambia compromised on the maize stock, which has actually now currently produced this current level of demand pressure. What we actually saw was that there were some little bit of issues to do with the procurement, and obviously when we started getting to the rain season, where we do mostly our planting season, we basically had a late distribution of input, and that also correlated with the bad shape when it actually happened with the issues to do with the the climate change as well. It had underplayed all this aspect. But largely what we are able to see is the issue to do with the high demand that has been placed in the regional market as well, where we've got so much of the demanding appetite in Congo, Malawi, and also Tanzania, and even part of Kenya, where we have actually been having quite a high standing a demand for maize. And much of what we are able to see is that all this is coming from the geopolitical tension, because the global market pattern have actually been disturbed in a way where we are now able to see some of the goods like wheat and few other staple food are being disturbed. So in this case now, we are having maize in some region where we have got surplus supply, like Zambia, now suffering in this case because even the global or the regional market also is faced with a lot of situation. Like in the case of Malawi, Madagascar, Zimbabwe, and a few other countries in the neighboring countries, they are not able to do substantially good in terms of production. So that has hampered also what we're able to see. And what we now we're able to see is that we've got low production also that has been correlating as well for some time. Last year, we had a very strong carryover of about 1.4 million metric tons, which actually augmented with the obviously what we had. So now what we have actually been able to see that we are not able to sufficiently supply the local market, or because the regional market also is highly demanding of the commodity as well. So that is what also correlating to all these factors. And given also the low production that we are expecting to harvest quite soon, also that is also sending a very strong sentiment to the market as well. And that has now put a lot of things in quagmire.
Well, you've broken it down very incisively, but let me also ask, there are reports that there seems to be an alarming rate of smugglers who have also ensured that while they carry out this very bad act, it in turn affects the cost and the prices of the Milli Meal. What has the government done in order to ensure that they stop these smugglers? We hear that they're ready to even go as far as doing it blatantly. They do not care if they're going to face the wrath of the law. How has the government responded to that?
Okay, maybe just to begin with, we have at the question, as I mentioned, the regional market, the neighboring countries have not been doing very much. Maybe I can give a typical example of maybe DRC Congo. DRC Congo has got a province just nearby here, Katanga province, which is actually consuming as much as Zambia's total volumes. Because we see in the aggregate numbers, we're talking of something like 2.7 million metric tons of maize, which in any case, our neighboring country here, just one province consumes almost that much. And even when you look at the current scenario of things as they stand, Congo does not do much of the agriculture. So much of what they do is to import Zambia and even the other neighboring countries. And Zambia actually does a lot of import into that country. So because of certain contentment that we had put in place in terms of export side to contend with the food security regarding this staple food. And by the way, also being a staple food, also it has also a very strong political tone as well, because obviously this has made itself to be a political crop, because obviously everyone plays around with it as well. But basically, just coming back to the market pattern and dynamics, I think it's an issue to do with also the aspect of low production, which has actually taken place in this case. So now for government to let proper model of having this export done or import done, they're now coming up with certain instruments which are now governing certain incentives, which we are able to see. Like 2 days ago, we saw the Minister of Finance issued duty suspense on meat meal import, meaning that we are not able to meet the current demand as it stands right now. But even if it has been done like that, we have a situation where basically we are faced with a lot of challenges to begin with. We have a situation where the regional market is not having this in good quantity as it stands. And even when you look at Zambia's pattern in terms of the milling company, we've got about 90 milling companies that are actually operating this market. Even if it has happened like that also, we have a slow pace as well coming from the government is food agents, which is not releasing stock on time as well. So there are quite a number of things that we are able to see on the table as it stands right now.
Okay, now let's talk about the government lifting duty on milling meal. Do you think that removal of this tax is a good move by the government, and how much would it impact the availability of milling meal?
Well, yes, what has happened, that is a temporary measure. Government has seen that the more we are forced to go into this chaotic situation where supply is quite high on the market, they have thought of saying, let's suspend the duty to ensure that we have this milling meal or rather maize flour available in most of the supermarkets. Because what we have right now is a situation where we've got a rapid shortage of this commodity, which has also caused a lot of panicking around the market players. And much of what we are able to see is there is so much of panic buying as it stands right now. So it's something that that government has futuristically seeing that maybe the best model to work around with is to ensure that we have many players importing this commodity, mostly from South Africa. Because obviously, when you look at the import inlet that they have put in place right now by suspending the excise and duties, is to ensure that South Africa interplay into this, because that's why we can have a good inflow of this commodity.
I want to say thank you so much for joining us, Zambian economist Kelvin Chisanga. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Right. You're also watching Breakfast Central on News Central. Well, we've been from different parts of Africa. We have actually brought to you some of the big stories, especially looking at the front pages and that which is ongoing in Uganda, not forgetting to Zambia and the likes. You want to react to the stories? Be our guest. All you need to do is tweet us at News Central TV, and we'd love to hear from you. So why are you wasting so much time? Go ahead and tweet us and let's listen to what you've got to say. In the meantime, we've looked at this Zambia situation and the issue. Most importantly, Olive, I can rightly say that one of the major challenges that Zambia did have, not just Zambia, but other African countries, was the Ukraine-Russia war, which many said really affected. Yeah, exactly. And it's good to know that at a certain point, Ukraine was able to still engage in trade with other African countries using other means, in short, to be able to get the food down to Africa. But if Zambia is going through these particular challenges, and just as the economist has said, yes, just take away some of the excesses on purchase, but the smuggling hasn't still stopped, which is
that's a major
problem.
concern. There have been vehicles and bikes that have been seized because they were caught smuggling mealie meal to DRC. Beyond that, I've seen clips, I can't verify though, I've seen clips of people allegedly fighting because of mealie meal. And if it's a staple and it's a very key component in the country, I think it's important that government prioritizes it. Just like, some people might think it's just a meal. It's just like rice in Liberia, and how important rice is, such that it even is a political statement in some measure in Liberia. So I think that's something that governments should prioritize, ensuring availability for the people. On the flip side, however, there have been conversations about how we need to find a way to reduce dependence or over-dependence on mealie meal, not just because of what is going on, but because it's high in calories and low in nutrition. These are some of the arguments that some nutritionists are putting forward. But I do certainly know that we'll follow up with the story and see if the removal of or suspension of duty on mealie meal would affect availability positively, and that there's some form of balance in Zambia.
Balance indeed. And then also looking at Uganda, most importantly, like we spoke with our guest, ghost workers.
19 billion
it's
shillings.
a thing. 19 billion shillings in just about 100 plus areas. That's a lot.
A whole lot, really. And the scary thing about that is it's not just in Uganda. It's something that's happened in different parts of the country, even here in Nigeria. Even there are people who are watching that are sort of ghost workers that have the accounts of their loved ones, their deceased members, receiving salaries from organizations that they're not working at. But we certainly will be following up with that, and we hope that the ghost workers are being fished out, and that some people are made to be held accountable for all that has been lost so far. This is still Breakfast Central. We've had our top stories around Africa. We'll come back with more top stories, but first, let's quick break, and when we come back, it will be time for sports.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
On Digi 360, we give you a complete dose of everything.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
The new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it. Use it to take action. Digi 360, dissecting the issues.
You wake up to a lot of stories about Africa.
But this is where you get the story straight.
Where we explore different angles because we understand our stories.
There's that passion when it's your perspective and not a distant perception.
I know you hear it a lot, but it's true. Nobody can tell your story better than you.
That's what we do.
All day, every day
on News Central TV.
Our African stories by Africans for Africans.
News Central ni ẹ̀ ń wò.
Thanks for staying with us. This is still Breakfast Central, and it's time to keep you updated in the world of sports. I'm Samson Oloide. We begin with women's football, where the coach of the Super Falcons of Nigeria, Randy Waldrum, has revealed his team can still improve on their performance after a 3-0 win against New Zealand in Antalya, Turkey, in an international friendly on Tuesday. Experienced defender Onome Ebi opened scoring for the 9-time African champions after 34 minutes of action, while Jennifer Echejini doubled the lead before striker Desire Okparanozie crowned a comeback to the Falcons with a third goal in stoppage time. Nigeria is drawn in Group B along with co-host Australia, Canada and Republic of 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup.
B, I mean, it's, you know, we got the 3 goals and we got the clean sheet, so I guess maybe I'm a little harsh with that grade, but there's still so many things that we can improve on and do better. And so I think we'll get there. But I think the good thing is, like I said, these last 2 camps we've been building and it's gotten better and better. And this is what we needed leading into camp before the World Cup.
On the continent, a football club in Tunisia has suspended activities after 32 of its players illegally emigrated to Europe. 32 of the club's players have emigrated to Europe amidst a long worsening economic crisis that has pushed many of its citizens to take desperate measures in search of better lives abroad. The Gandumois players, aged between 17 and 22, either left by sea or went via Serbia, then illegally crossed the border into other countries. Away from that, to Europe, Napoli will be without their main goal threat Victor Osimhen due to injury for the All-Italian Champions League quarter-final first leg with AC Milan. The Nigerian international, who has 25 goals in 29 games for Napoli this season, has failed to recover in time from a thigh injury and will not be involved on Wednesday. Napoli has 16 points clear at the top of the Italian Serie A standings with 9 matches left, but lost by 4-0 at home to AC Milan in the league on the 2nd of April. Still talking UEFA Champions League, here are the results of yesterday's matches, where Benfica lost at home to Inter Milan by 2-0, while Manchester City dropped Bayern Munich by 3-0 with Erling Haaland scoring once again and breaking the goal-scoring record. For tonight's fixtures, AC Milan will take on Napoli in an all-Italian affair at the San Siro Stadium with Nigeria's Victor Osimhen missing in action, while the Santiago Bernabeu will see Real Madrid host Chelsea with Frank Lampard making a reunion. Away from there to athletics, African 100 meters record holder Ferdinand Omanyala from Kenya will race in the athletics South Africa Grand Prix Continental Tour Challenger in Shwane on Wednesday and in Jamestown the week after. The Kenyan will be the biggest attraction at the newly revamped Cleadich Stadium in the capital city. Now, the Commonwealth Games 100 meters champion is back in the country after racing in Potchefstroom and Jamestown in the series in 2022. The Kenyan superstar was in Potchefstroom to watch his rival Akani Simbin defend his national 100 meters title 2 weeks ago. Omanyala is excited to race against the South African record holder with 9.84 seconds in Shwane. Last year, he defeated Simbini in the Grand Prix, African Championships, as well as the Commonwealth Games. Away from there, let's talk basketball now. LeBron James had 30 points and 10 rebounds as the Los Angeles Lakers edged an on-demand Minnesota Timberwolves 108-102 points in overtime to clinch the 7th spot in the Western Conference. Anthony Davis had 24 points and 15 rebounds, while Dennis Schroeder had scored 21 points and iced the win with 2 free throws with 8.4 seconds left for the Lakers, who will face second-seeded Memphis Grizzlies in the first round starting on Sunday. Other results from the NBA play tournament, you have the Atlanta Hawks defeating Miami Heat against all odds by 116-105 points. And that's a wrap on sports updates at this time. It's back to you, Joe and Olive.
Thank you so much, Sam, for bringing us that story. I did catch up with that Lakers game, and I must say that it was very close. But then again, winning with that close margin is indeed good for LeBron James. 38 years of age. LeBron James is still doing what he does, just like he was at 30 years of age.
Yeah, quite interesting, it must be said. Not just 38 years of age, but also season 20. And oftentimes in basketball, you hardly have players hit the season 20 in terms of the mark. Most times they're at the twilight of their careers and posting mega numbers, but that's not LeBron James. He's still posting numbers, still outscoring teammates. You have to give it to him. Despite the fact that age is catching up and his body is beginning to break down, he's still, you know, turning up every time he hits the court. And I think he will be very, very instrumental to the Lakers, you know, run in the playoffs this season.
So brilliant. I mean, just seeing that Lakers game, and seeing, we're talking about LeBron James, I remember Kobe. And I now, you know, I mean, we will never ever forget Kobe. But I also do remember Michael Jordan. I don't know if any of you have seen the new movie that talked about Michael Jordan and, you know, his journey with the popular shoe brand in terms of how they were able to strike a business that has today, you know, made him wealthy in millions of dollars. So, I mean, for me, I got the opportunity of seeing it yesterday. And one of the lessons I've learned from that would be the fact that, you know, as sports people, you're talking about age catching up with them. You will not play sports for the rest of your life. So I'm hoping that a lot of them are diversifying and going into businesses and partnerships that would sort of, you know, ensure that the wealth is sealed and that when they can no longer play, they have something to fall back on.
Well, I'm looking forward to see that movie too. And it's one movie that I have it on my list. I must. It's a must see. But I think the lessons, like you highlighted, Olive, is also one that I'd like to add to, not just for sports people, but for every human. You need to understand how certain type of businesses work. And you don't know, you might be the next best big thing from Africa by just investing and putting a little thing inside. I can see Samson, you know, agreeing with me. Possibly he could invest in milli meal, you know, importing and exporting a milli meal from Zambia and the likes.
Well, definitely, it's a lesson sports, you know, men and women need to take into, you know, their lives, knowing quite well that their stint is short in terms of their playing careers. So it's the post-career that matters and how they're able to sustain that lifestyle. I think for most, you know, athletes, especially the top ones, they start early because they have the buzz around them. They are the ones the brands are chasing. So they have the name, they have the brand, and they can easily sign up, you know, for whatever deal from various endorsements, even down to, you know, shoe deals. For example, in basketball, that's, you know, an in thing. You'll have top athletes, faces of franchises signing deals, shoe deals with sports apparels and manufacturing companies. So I think it's all about investing wisely. And as you said, Michael Jordan is a prime example of how to invest wisely for athletes so that post-career you can also live comfortably. I think it's just a great lesson.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Let's not also forget that governments of countries need to ensure, you know, and the sports bodies in the different countries need to ensure that they prioritize these players, because what we see is that sometimes they see them as an important tool because you can exploit their talent, but they're not prioritized. If we bring it back here, we can't start to talk about some of our athletes and the issues they have when it comes to even getting something as simple as a visa to go and participate in a game. So we see that repeats itself in a number of situations. It just shows the amount of attention that we're paying. So beyond them also being able to explore other opportunities, the governments and the sport bodies in different countries need to see the game as important, but beyond seeing the game as important, there's no game without the player, so you must prioritize the player as well.
You've said it all.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so
bringing
much.
sports updates. We look forward to seeing you outside the studio.
Thank you so much.
All right. This is, of course, still Breakfast Central. It's been an interesting morning, highlighting conversations around Africa, looking at the sporting world. But let's share with you a quick recap of some of the topics that we've touched on this morning. We still have more to come, but let's share with you what we've discussed so far. We headed to Zambia, where the Minister of Finance suspends duty on milli meal imports to talk about the smuggling and how the people of Zambia are being able to cope so far.
Uganda government carries out fresh payroll audit. We talked about the numbers, very, very huge.
Of course. And Ferdinand Omayala to compete at Continental Tour. These and several other stories were touched on when we discussed sports. But there's more to come this morning. So let's quickly look through what's coming up next.
Coming up next year on Breakfast Central second hour, we are fired up and ready. INEC asks tribunal to dismiss LP petition with substantial loss.
And subsidy fuel removal, marketers to President Buhari.
Telling them not to do that.
Yeah, telling them not to do that, of course. Makazi show stopped after fans overpower security. We're going to be looking into these and more shortly.
our youth are the most important national asset that we have.
Did you hear the stories of Africans who fought for their independence, bringing a wave of 30 free countries in just 10 years? Did you hear of the heroes who fought battles that are just like yours? They courageously marched against bad governance, police brutality and oppression. You're not the first in these battlefields.
Amazon is in green. Camacho Quinn second from the left. The Olympic champion's been left a little bit at the start by Armstrong.
Those stories may be hard to find in the mix of foreign priority, perspective and agenda, but our stories will definitely find future generations. The fearless generation of tomorrow will know the battles that we are fighting and the giant strides we're making in technology, art, music, movies, business and more. They will know our wins and losses, our stories, and the influences of our evolving and diverse cultures. They'll learn from our mistakes, appreciate our progress, and build on successes. With our stories and their relentless ambition, we will be one step closer to the Africa of our dreams. Because whatever happens today across Africa, News Central will amplify those stories that define our times. News Central Television. We are Africa first.
Welcome to the headlines again on Breakfast Central. I am Likon Obanjo. We begin in West Africa, where the United Nations has urged Mali's military government to expedite the process of returning to civilian rule by early 2024, as promised. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in our Security Council report, also expressed concern about persistent violence against civilians and problems implementing a peace agreement between the state and armed groups in the north. The Security Council is scheduled to meet on Wednesday. Mali has been battling a security and political crisis since separatist insurgents in the north in 2012. In Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday departed for Saudi Arabia on an official visit. The visit is Buhari's last trip to the kingdom as president. During the visit, the president, who is being accompanied by his aides, will perform also Umrah, which is the lesser pilgrimage. The president last performed the Umrah in 2021. Buhari will leave office as president on May 29 after completing his 2 terms as president. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom has expressed its commitment to continue to partner with Nigeria's military in tackling insecurity, especially in the Gulf of Guinea and the Sahel. This was revealed by the United Kingdom Minister for Armed Forces, James Hippie, as he spoke to newsmen in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, commending the relationship and the collaboration between the militaries of both nations, which has spanned long before Nigeria's independence.
The reason that our armed forces remain so close is because that friendship has been renewed again and again and again since the point of independence, because we have worked together to address challenges like maritime insecurity in the Gulf of Guinea or terrorism in the Lake Chad Basin. And we will continue to do so. Now, a lot of that is connected to training together and sharing tactics and techniques for how to deal with the problems of the day. But also it's to do with a shared inventory. It's to do with operating the same kit. You know, that combination of training together, developing capability together, added to our shared history, is what makes the relationship between the UK and Nigerian armed forces so strong. And I have every confidence it will continue to be strong for many days.
In East Africa, Kenya's main opposition party has announced plans for a public rally, but said it remains committed to easing political tension through dialogue after anti-government protests turned violent last month. Azimio La Umoja, the party of veteran opposition leader Raila Odinga, says it will hold direct engagements with the public, including a rally in Nairobi, as it prepares for talks with the government. The ruling coalition has also named individuals who will represent the government in negotiations with the opposition. The 7-member team was named on Tuesday after a meeting chaired by President William Ruto. Staying in the region, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has visited a camp for internally displaced people in Baidoa, Somalia. He spoke with the families living in makeshift shelters in the camp through a translator. Guterres also appealed to the international community to solve the humanitarian crisis camp by creating conditions to build resilience of their population.
It's time for the international community to mobilize much more support to the Somalis to guarantee the security of their people and fight terrorism. Support to the Somalis to solve the humanitarian drama that you can witness in the camp like this. And support to the Somalis in creating the conditions to build resilience of their populations and to create a path of development for the people of Somalia. Well, first of all, I am encouraged by the fact that we have now the capacity that the Somalis have developed to start increasing their possibility to liberate areas in relation to Shabab. They have done it already in other parts of the territory. I hope they will be able to do it also here. But what has been dramatic is 5 consecutive years of drought. The people I met have lost their livestock, have lost their property, have lost everything. So this combination of terrorism and drought, largely caused by climate change, creates a perfect storm for the people of Somalia.
That's all on Brexit. Over now to Olive and Joe.
Thank you so much, Lekon, for bringing us the breakfast headlines. Interesting stories you've raised there. Of course, we can't stop talking about the humanitarian crisis in Somalia and how we must pay attention to the countries on the continent that are still struggling. A number of them are still struggling with internally displaced persons, and the number of them that need some form of aid. So we must look out for each other. We must help each other and show up for each other.
Well said, Olive, and it's very important that these people have shelter, have food, most especially the fact that countries like that, the Horn of Africa, are going through droughts, bouts of drought that is tearing through these countries, and it's important that international organizations, other countries, both in Africa and outside Africa, come together, pull resources together, and see how they can provide humanitarian aid, food, healthcare, whatever it is that can help them live through the debilitating times they are faced with.
I mean, beyond the organizations, beyond the government, I'd also like to quickly state that civil organizations have a role to play. So we have a lot of people who have started NGOs. I'd like to encourage that they look at the internally displaced persons. When you hear some of the horror stories of what people living in IDPs have to go through, for girls who can't even have access to sanitary pads and use grass. You know, some of the stories are tales of horrors. I'm hoping that some civil organizations can look at exploring, making up and being there for the internally displaced persons. Thank you so much, Lekon, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lekon. All right, let's go straight to the front pages for the second hour. Let's start off right away. And our very first stop is in Nigeria. The Daily Trust is a newspaper we're looking at, and that big header there, leaked audio, federal government, ACF, others blast Obi, pow. And they say, clear yourself, Honda's challenges LP candidate. If you've heard the audio, I mean, that was the audio that was trending some weeks back. Obi did come out to say that it wasn't him. It was tweaked. And now the federal government and ACF is saying, you know what, come outside, clear yourself. It's ploy to divert attention from Obi's petition, Afenifere leader says. Arewa leaders warn LP candidate against unguarded utterances. Okay, that's another one. Reps finger Malami Ahmed, others in $2.4 billion oil revenue scam. Wow, you could read that. You'll find out how, where, and who. IMF urges CBN to continue raising interest rate. IMF urges CBN to continue raising interest rates. Okay. Jay's Bank increased gross profit by 2.3 billion naira in 2022. Well, that's some of the stories you find. The Daily Trust has another one. It says, let's support a legislator per excellence. This is an advert you'd find on the front page as well. Well, 10th Assembly Speaker, why Owase is the best choice. That's another story. You find out on page 5. Well, that's all practically that the Daily Trust has, but one that's of interest is the leaked audio. Federal government, ACF, others blast Obi. They tell him to actually speak and come out outright to tell Nigerians that he wasn't the one. Remember that there were rebuttals and there were statements also made from the camp of the Labour Party that that audio was tweaked. But we'll get to see that. I thought by now, Olive, they would have indeed brought forward the one who leaked that audio.
Well, I didn't expect that to come out. To be honest, I didn't expect that that was going to come out. But then it is well. I really don't have any reaction.
A lot of back and forth. A lot.
Right. Yeah. But this political season, I don't think I was surprised by that. I was still expecting it to be more intense. I was expecting that there'll be more. It's a season of blackmail. Everybody will try to see what they can use against the other party. But anyway, let's move away from Daily Trust and look at this day newspaper. The front page says, INEC, no act of infraction substantial enough to nullify 2023 presidential poll. Well, I don't think that's INEC's prerogative. I think that the court will be the final arbiter, will be the one to decide at the end of the day. Argues same constitutional provisions apply to states, FCT on 25% in 24 states, insists Tinubu won. Article contends that election petitions put judiciary on trial. APC says tribunal lacks necessary jurisdiction to entertain petition on Tinubu's qualification, saying that Obi has no low-cost standard. We have here Chimamanda Adichie. She says, and I quote, Buhari INEC blew last chance to emerge Nigeria's heroes. She insists that her critics, deflecting focus on pertinent issues, are deploying ethnicity. Says she respects Shoyinka but disagrees with him on 2023 polls. World Medical Association attacks lawmakers over bill restricting doctors to Nigeria. Maintain tight monetary policy to check inflation, IMF tells CBN. And the final stories. Buhari Atiku Ohaneze mourn as ex-Anambra Governor Mbadinuju dies at 78 on page 41. And that's all that we have this day in Nigeria. Let's head over to Uganda with the Daily Monitor.
All right, let's go straight to Uganda as we can quickly paste this up. The Daily Monitor is one newspaper that has this one covered. Museveni nails 20 ministers on iron sheets.
That's good.
Finally, it wasn't just one person. Now they are 20. Directive President says public officials named in diversion of Karamoja iron sheets indulged in subversion, undermined the country's security, and should be charged with theft.
As they should.
Yes, pages 6 to 7. We did talk about this, and Karamoja MPs vow to seek justice for starved suspects. That's another one on page 3. But concerning this one, you find the documents, the information, the details, everything inside of the Daily Monitor. Find questions of English, mathematics, science, and social studies, pages 19 to 22. It's back again, yes, so students can start gearing up to ensure they read. Now, how proposed taxes, fines will affect you. They give you a complete infography explaining what to expect from proposed taxes. And 20%, 33 shillings, 2 million shillings, 30%, and so on. I think you need to take some time if you are in Uganda, especially for the Ugandans, to read up what the proposed taxes would look like. In some parts of Africa, when taxes are indeed proposed, there's an increase. What you expect is you see an increase in tariff of power, increase in the tariff of one or two other things, especially with the commodities. It could also affect the fuel, that's oil and gas, you name them. Every right. sector would have would bear the brunt, but of course it has to trickle down into the man who lives on the next street here or there, and it also trickles down to you. So take for instance, if there's an increase in the taxes, you need to know how much you're going to start saving up for power. If you need to recharge, you need units, you need power, you need to know how much you save up and the likes. We'll go for a quick break right now. When we come back, we'll take you through one last paper, and after the paper, then we'll bring to you our very, very interesting top story that everyone's talking about. So stay here with us. We'll be right back.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has asked the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal to dismiss a petition filed by the Labour Party and its presidential candidate, Peter Obi, challenging the victory of Bola Tinubu, candidate of the All Progressives Congress, as the president-elect. In the petition led by Levi Ozoku, lead counsel to Labour Party and its presidential candidate, the petitioners asserted that the election was marred by rigging and manipulations while violating its own regulations.
Well, in the response filed on Monday night, INEC, through its lawyer Abubakar Mahmood, said the reliefs sought by Obi and his party are not grantable. The commission prayed the courts to either dismiss or strike out the petition for being grossly incompetent, abusive, vague, amongst many other descriptions. And, well, in Lagos, People's Democratic Party, PDP, Lagos State, and its governorship candidate, Dr. Abdulaziz Adediran, that's otherwise known as Jandor, also submitted a petition before the Governorship Election Petition Tribunal of Lagos State. And the PN and Adediran are calling for the disqualification of All Progressives Congress and the Labour Party candidates in the election for non-compliance with the Electoral Act 2022. This is amidst continuous developments in the tribunal process. So as we speak this morning, we do have petitions flying here and there and a countdown to the swearing-in of President-elect. Well, what will the court do? So like many have said, the court will be in session. But joining us now to discuss this is Anthony Ehilebo. He is a legal practitioner and a member of PDP Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you for joining us, Anthony, this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, first off, thank you. First off, let's go straight into it. What's your take on INEC coming out to say that some of the petitions that have actually been brought forward should be stricken out, should be taken out, should not be attended to by the court? And secondly, what is your take on the countdown towards the inauguration, the big inauguration?
Well, let me start from your first question. INEC, as it is today, if you take a public perception reading, if you want to feel the temperature of most Nigerians, I don't know why it deceives itself that it performed. INEC disappointed Nigerians on a level that is unprecedented. The backflips, the reverse conversations, the denial of one's own commentary as evidenced by the press releases, the Twitter feed of INEC, verified Twitter feed of INEC, which stated certain things were mandatory, and how it has taken them so long to come up with this response that they have. It's quite befuddling. Just before I came on your show, another radio host was asking me that the INEC regulation allows for it to use manual collation, which is the main context here. But I mean, we'll talk about the response of the APC to Labour Party's petition. But the fulcrum of most of the petitions we've seen as regards the presidential election, because that is where INEC failed to perform its obligatory duties as prescribed, and it's also stated in its own press statements that it is mandatory by the Electoral Act. Now, one thing most people must realize is that the Electoral Act is not a child of happenstance. It's been a long time coming. In fact, since 2007, when Justice Uwais was commissioned to look into the electoral reform processes after the then president-elect President Umar Yar'Adua accepted that the elections that brought him in were grossly flawed. And being an upright man, he said he promised to fix the system. And that's when he inaugurated the Uwais Commission. Unfortunately, before he could even start the implementation, he passed on. But somehow, civil society, subsequent governments have tried to toe that line of giving Nigerians free, fair, and credible elections. And that was climaxed in 2022. But there's a backstory to this. I always say this for immortality and for us to keep the record straight. One man, Ariyo Dare Atoye, he's late now, he passed on in October, unfortunately. His last advocacy was when he realized that some members of the APC had surreptitiously removed electronic transmission of results from the Electoral Act that was going to be passed by the president. He raised that alarm, started protesting at the National Assembly before Nigerians caught on to what sinister plans these guys had. And then we had all sorts of pressure from the NBA, from the Nigerian Guild of Editors. I remember it was such a huge campaign because we were all part of that campaign. And we were careful with the wording of the Electoral Act that was going to be passed by, and indeed was passed by Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari. Thanks to him, which we felt he would try to implement. And we had seen the practice of going to the IREV to check results. Now, one thing everybody must be clear on is that the IREV and electronic transmission of results was the game changer everybody believed in for 2023. Incidentally, just a few days before the elections, I was out of the country and I was flying back in. I came back on a fully booked British Airways flight. Everybody on that flight, 90% of the people on that flight were residents of the UK coming back to Nigeria to cast their vote. Why? Because we had been able to not only influence the sort of wordings we wanted into the Electoral Act, we had gotten the president to sign the Electoral Act. Because, you know, these things have a history. The intensity to have electronic transmission came about after the Kogi and Bayelsa by-elections. Kogi particularly had turned violent. And where did we see this violence occurring? At collation centers, when ballot boxes were in transit to either the ward collation, the local government collation, in the case of a state election and the state collation office, where thugs would ambush these results and cut them away. And then you'll find that at collation, there'll be this intentionally, knowing where their strong points or their weak points were, they were manipulating the outcomes of these results. So, as a preventive measure, most of us that were part of the agitations for the Electoral Act 2022 amendments were very careful in the words that we put in the Electoral Act so that we could compel even the umpire. There's a story I'm very careful about telling Nigerians. This was in 2019. The same Mahmoud Yakubu gathered us young people, about 15 or 12 of us, in a room, said he was having a Chatham House meeting, and promised us free, fair, and credible elections, and that INEC had a server which would be used for the 2019 election. Ario was in that room too. And that is why, in anticipating what Mahmoud Yakubu would do, we made sure these changes were put in the Electoral Act and fought. This was a very serious, in fact, the APC had removed it in the Senate. Removed electronic transmission. There was a huge argument. In fact, they had to get data from NCC to back the claim that the IREV, BVAS, would work even in remote areas. There was even the argument that if you could not upload, you could upload offline. And as soon as that machine or device was anywhere it could get service, it would transmit those results. Lo and behold, on election day, I was in Igwebe. I was in my polling unit. We uploaded we didn't have House of Rep because issue, so we only had the Senate and the presidency. We finished the elections, they could upload the Senate. Then they now started having problems uploading the presidential election, which meant somebody had intentionally sabotaged the upload of presidential elections results. Now, let me say something. Fast forward to the 18th, in my same local government, the IREV and everything was working. And we already knew from our reports from the field what the election results were. But there was a ward called Ward 10, EPON. Those boys blocked the election materials and election officers from coming out of their ward. Unfortunately for them, we just sat down at the collation center, went on IREV, and we saw all the results they were trying to stop from coming to the collation center and collated with those results. And that was how the result was declared. So you see the ill electronic transmission sought to cure. Now, when INEC is coming out to tell us fictitious stories, to tell us that after dampening our hope, because 5 days after the election, they had not yet uploaded results to the IREV. And even the results that they uploaded were all mutilated results. We have about 50,000 results that were mutilated beyond, and we have the original copies of these results.
Right.
And they do not tally with what INEC is uploading to the IREV. In fact, you will find out that more than 10 different local governments had their results uploaded from one table. You could tell that this table is the same table, the results from probably Nkana local government, the result from another local government in the same state. Whereas the law is specific that immediately the elections are done from the polling units, the election officer must upload that result. And at collation, if there was a dispute, the collection officer must stop that collation and refer back to the IREF.
Right. Mr. Ahilebo, you've highlighted a number of the complaints that a number of Nigerians have also, spotted and talked about. We've also seen that there have been petitions that have been made by your party, by the APC, by the Labour Party, I beg your pardon. Now, what we're hearing is that the INEC is challenging the jurisdiction, or the APC is challenging the jurisdiction of the tribunal to be able to hear some of the pre-election matters that have been raised in the petition as presented by the Labour Party. How do you foresee all of this going down, especially as we're counting down to May 29th?
Well, as a practicing lawyer, let's not just delve into the substance of the case because it is now sub judice. But we can talk about the surface area of it, or surface matters. Yes, I know that there were pre-election matters that were taken to court, and the court declined to even look into the matter, stating that these pre-election matters did not, because the Electoral Act also wanted to keep busybodies out of election petitions, which in a way it's a good thing. But once they have gone to a presidential election petition tribunal, all matters are welcome, even pre-election matters. So it allows for that leeway. But like I said, this is sub judice. We'll have to wait and see how the court interprets these things. We're also not aware that we must tell the courts that they must be careful of their pronouncements, because their pronouncement becomes law, and their pronouncement is kept in history. And for time immemorial, people will always refer to any judgment, whether it was good or bad. I remember in my years in law school, or in my years training as a lawyer, we always referred to great and eminent jurists like Lord Denning, J.S.C. Okuta as he then was, the great names, because of the sort of judgments that they gave. Don't forget there was a time Nigeria was held at the muzzle of an AK-47 by the military. But we had fearless judges that gave judgments against the military. Just, you remember them, the litany of justices there. But what we have today is a lack of faith, if I would put it that way.
All right.
They go to court job, but we know that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man, and more or less than often comes to rescue of the common man, and I believe will come to rescue and aid of the Nigerian voter.
Okay, Mr. Ahilebo, a lot of comments have also gone out concerning INEC and its statements made earlier on, whether INEC followed its own laws or INEC digressed, if we look at it from that perspective. Let's take a look at one of it. One of the letters that was indeed put out during before the elections, where the INEC did make mention of this very clearly. I'd like us to look at the third paragraph. It says IREF is one of the innovations introduced by the Commission to ensure integrity and credibility of election results in Nigeria. It is therefore inconceivable that the Commission will turn around and undermine its own innovations. Let's take a look at the second paragraph. I beg your pardon once again. It says a claim that was made earlier that the machine, the IREF, will not be used. It says the Commission has repeatedly reassured Nigerians that it will transmit results directly from the polling units, as we witnessed in Ekiti and Osun State governorship elections, and 103 more constituencies where off-circle governorship, FCT area council elections and by-elections were held since August 2020. The results can still be viewed on the portal. In other words, the results of these states mentioned here can still be viewed on the portal. One, as we speak, some of the results of the just concluded elections have not been posted on the portal. INEC has said that they do not have to depend on those results posted on the portal before they can announce the winner. Secondly, INEC also put out a tweet which we're also going to see there on the screen. And that tweet was also a follow-up and a clarification of what it had said. On that tweet, I hope we have that tweet there. Yes, it says, the Commission will upload polling unit level results and citizens will have access to those results in real time, which is underlined there, as we upload. This innovation was introduced by the Commission, and the Commission cannot turn around to undermine itself. This technology has come to stay. Do you think INEC has lived up to these statements it made clear and bare to Nigerians?
There's a song, there's a popular pop artist called Falls. The father is Leonard Essien, and he's very in-depth in terms of his lyrics, and he did a song called Mr. Yakubu. I wish you guys had the time to go through that. He literally put out the lyrics, or put out the book, and allowed Nigerians freestyle on it. I've seen over 200 videos of Nigerians and their versions of what they think of the INEC chairman and INEC itself. One thing that we must be careful of in life, and this goes to even me speaking, that our words will always be used to judge us. Our words would always come back to haunt us. And like I said, in 2019, I heard the words of Mahmoud Yakubu. So as 2023, I'm not surprised that this is the kind of man he is. There are states that we are aware, particularly a state like Rivers State. We are aware that people were allowed to do what they wanted to do in Rivers because perhaps he had a prior relationship with the current governor of Rivers State. Yes, when he was executive secretary at TEDFON, the current governor of Rivers State was his boss as Minister of State for Education. We know this history. We understand the dynamics of the things that have happened. Go and see the results in Rivers State, how mutilated they are. During the collation of results, the agent, Dino Melaye, say whatever you will about him. But his assertion that the INEC chairman must stop the collation and go back to the IREF was right. Because we put these things in the Electoral Act. These are not phantom words. These are not, we knew who we were dealing with. We anticipated these things. And we do what we do, not because I'm a member of a political party, because I see the further down the road consequences of this action. This man allegedly may have collected money and feels that he can go and live his life of luxury. But the pain and suffering of Nigerians will continue as long as we do not have credible elections, as long as people who we did not want in positions of leadership can force their way into these offices and begin to act in a manner that human beings or people will not be able to understand, because they were not put there by these said people. They believe that they grabbed it, stole it, and ran with it, regardless, and told us Nigerians to go to court. Look, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The consequences we will always see. In 2015, Nigerians were told the consequences of electing a certain set of people into government. 8 years down the line, they came in on security, economy, and corruption. I think on all fronts, Nigerians have seen the consequences. And I think Nigerians decided in 2023 to turn around their fortunes. And indeed, they had the right to do this because enabling laws had guaranteed them these rights would be totally enforced.
Okay.
We saw this happen in Edo State. You see, I need to go back to by-elections. Having participated in these by-elections, I can tell you the impact of IREF. It solved I mean, look at Edo elections. We didn't have violence. Why? Because the IREV worked. So ballot box snatchers knew that no matter where they went to snatch the ballot box, or no matter how they tried to attack the collation center, the results were already, everybody knew what the results were. By 12 a.m. on the 20th of September 2020 in Edo State, I participated in that election. And immediately I finished voting, I went to Benin to the collations, to our situation room. We had the results. Same thing for Ondo. In fact, by 6 o'clock in Ondo, we already knew we lost that election. And some of us started in Ondo.
Mr. Anthony Ahilebo, there's so many angles to explore in this conversation, but unfortunately we've run out of time. But we thank you so much for joining us. We of course will be following this conversation step by step. There are areas that we would love to talk about that we cannot talk about because matters are still pending in court. But as they are sorted, we'd certainly love to have you back to expatiate on them further. Thank you for your time.
No worries, anytime.
All right. The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria have kicked against subsidy removal, stressing that the move should be suspended because the regime of the President, Muhammadu Buhari, retired, did not provide the required factors for subsidy removal. So yes, they have of course asked that it be removed because President Muhammadu Buhari has not yet satisfied the requirements for subsidy.
Well, late last month, Pengerson called on the federal government to stop subsidizing petrol as well as ensure the speedy rehabilitation of Nigeria's refineries. Meanwhile, a civil society organization, Human Environmental Development Agenda, has urged the federal government led by the President Muhammadu Buhari to tackle corruption in the petroleum sector before removing fuel subsidy. So I do recall that everyone is expecting the fuel subsidy to be removed as soon as a new dispensation kicks in. That would either be
actually, you're looking at June. It's most likely going
of course, after the handover, immediately after the handover. And if you recall, the president-elect by the name of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu had already said that as soon as he gets in, he's going to remove subsidy. There is nothing you can do about it.
And the fear the Nigerians are having.
700 naira per litre.
Yes. How much is it? How are we going to survive?
700 naira per litre. You know, the most concern are the people who are in limbo. And that number accounts for a huge percentage of Nigerians. No,
everybody will be affected by this.
Yes, I said the most concerned. And what are they concerned about? They are concerned about the statement of we have removed subsidy and we will remove subsidy. Today, Olive, I mean, we've been here, we're broadcasters, we've read the news where statements have been made that, oh, subsidy has been removed. And then we now hear, oh, we will remove subsidy. People are still asking, wait, didn't you remove subsidy the other time? Oh, no, we just cushioned the effect. So then we will still review it. So there's a lot of back and forth conversation on this subsidy removal. However, are we ready for the 700 naira per litre?
Beyond that, I mean, there's the 700 naira per litre one. Mm-hmm. There's also the impact on food prices.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is going to skyrocket. Transportation, it will be tough. How exactly are they planning to cushion the effect? There have been reports of them allocating a certain amount of money to give to homes. If you're giving people money, 5,000, 10,000, how much can you really do?
Have you received anything?
I don't even care. I don't even want it. Because at the end of the day, you receive that money, how much is it really, what effect is it going to have? You have family members, you have loved ones, they all have to feed. So you feed with this 5,000, 10,000 ones, and that's it.
That's all.
Well, anyway, these are conversations that we'll be having on Breakfast Central. But we thank you for staying tuned with us. Let us know what your thoughts are. Are you for or against subsidy removal? Tweet at NewsCentralTV. Would love to share your tweets as well. And we wrap up the show this morning by sharing with you what's happening in the world of entertainment. Stick around.
All right, now so much has happened in the entertainment scene, but let's start with this one. South African-born singer Makazi was abruptly interrupted while performing at her show in Mature, Zimbabwe. Now, this 26-year-old performer took off the stage after a stampede occurred, leading to some violence. In fact, reports say some concert goers began throwing missiles at the VIP section, resulting in an undisclosed number of fans reportedly injured and taken to hospital for treatment. Initial reports suggested that the violence erupted because the Nickelodeon Favorite African Star winner decided to use pre-recorded tracks through her performance. Then another report revealed that the venue was overcrowded, resulting in a stampede as fans fought to record the songstress on their phones. Now, veteran show organizer Patson Chimboza finally spoke up about the incident. This is what he says. He offered an apology first to the South African star. He cleared the air, admitting that bottles were thrown, but not targeted at Makazi. He says it's true that bottles were thrown onto the stage, but they were not targeted at Makazi as claimed on social media and other media outlets. When Makazi appeared on stage, fans jostled to catch a glimpse of her and broke barricades demarcating the VIP enclosure and the ordinary side. Now, following his statement of apology to South African hitmaker and her team, he begged fans to desist from violent behavior during live shows. Now, Makazi, who is known for her energetic performances, was expected to thrill fans on Good Friday before the disaster ensued. Well, it's a good thing that we have closure now, knowing exactly what happened. Because, you know, with social media, you're never too sure because of so many reports and people at the scene. But it's a good thing that he's apologized. I also did see a report saying that she will never return to Zimbabwe to perform. But we hope that's not the case. And things like this will be resolved. Let's move to international scene, where American rapper Tory Lanez is back in the news. As many await his sentencing in the Megan Thee Stallion case, news broke that the trial has been delayed once again. Now, reportedly, Lanez's team has new evidence to present to the courts as they try to get him a new trial. According to NBC News, the appointed judge was set to hear arguments for a new trial for the hitmaker on Monday, April the 10th, but now it will happen at a later date because of Lanez's motion for the request. The Canadian rapper born Daystar Peterson could face 22 years and 8 months in prison if given the maximum sentence. Now, this is, of course, for assault with a semi-automatic firearm, discharging a firearm with gross negligence, and carrying a loaded, unregistered firearm in a vehicle. Now, reportedly, Lanez's new attorney, Matthew Bahoma, doubts forensic testing used during the trial. There were also bribery accusations by the key witness after she had earlier backtracked her initial statement, blaming it on anxiety and postpartum depression. Now, although prosecutors' office have maintained evidence presented at trial was properly admitted and that the defendant's claims of errors and violations of his constitutional right are without merit, fans and celebrities who have dictators for the 3-year case, or almost 3-year case now, would have to wait longer, of course, to see the outcome. Now, Lanez could also be deported from Canada following his time served. Now, the case, of course, happened after an altercation between Tory Lanez and the Grammy Award-winning rapper Megan Thee Stallion in July 2020 after a party in LA. Now, recall, she testified under oath that Lanez had shot her in the foot, although initially she told police officers she had cut herself on broken glass. Now, it's one of those cases that have gone back and forth online as well. And, you know, people are just advocating for justice to be served in whatever form. In some other cases, some people are a little sad that, you know, he's popular, he's Tory Lanez. How can this happen to him? But, you know, the law cannot, would I say, be cheated. If perhaps he's found guilty, he will serve his term. But we'll have to wait, of course, to see how things pan out in this one. But I have to ask you, this is the second time that we're, Olive and I was going to say Elsa, and Joe, this is the second time we're seeing violence. In fact, many times we're seeing violence erupting these venues. And I was talking to someone recently, and, you know, David was about to do a concert here in Lagos at a particular area, I think towards TBS. And many people are concerned. I'm concerned. In fact, the person I was talking to also was concerned about hopefully there's no violence, hopefully the crowd can be put together. What are your thoughts about this form of violence and fans doing all this mess at concert venues?
I mean, it's important. We took the story, I think it's Uganda, where there was a stampede, and then, you know, there were deaths as a result of the stampede because the MC had asked for them to come out and, you know, look at fireworks and then walk back into the hall, and then they were stampeding trying to get back. So it's important not just it's important that the event planners, the facility managers, have pre-production meetings, very detailed pre-production meetings. You must also prioritize security. You can't just, coming to entertain the people is one thing, but on the other hand, it could go south very quickly. So I'm just hoping that, these people have learned. Thankfully, I believe there were no lives lost in this story that we're taking. And that they've learned their lessons, and they'll ensure that they put all the necessary checks. As for Davido's concert, there are many lovers of Davido. Everyone is happy and wanting to be excited for him because he's had a really rough year. But he's had a good outing with Timeless, the album. So I'm sure that people are showing up because they love him, not because they want to hurt other people. However, it could easily go left. Maybe for whatever reason, stampede could occur. So I'm hoping that they will do the necessary background checks and put in necessary measures to avoid such incidences occurring at TBS.
Well, one of the reasons why you have challenges of stampede or insecurity at events is just one reason, and that's because the level at which you prepare for your events are as follows: venue, stage, light, performance, ticketing. Sadly, security comes between 5 and 10. Security is never 1 to 5. So if a Davido is having a concert in an area that we know to be, not highly secured, let's be honest with ourselves, and parking spaces are equally, not much, so there will be a lot of challenges from parking to moving to that area, then I think if I were him, security should be number 2. The venue is 1, security 2. So adequate security, ensure it's done properly, and pay attention to your security details, architecture. Make sure you create a leeway where people can walk by. You don't need to even park closer to the venue. All of these things, if you put them together, I'm sure he would have a great concert. But the reason why these things happen is because, like I've said, they always move security to the later.
Thankfully, we've not had any situation like that with Davido in time past. So I'm not sure that this will be I'm sure that this will not be an exception. Thank you so much, Sam Dandy, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We made a conversation about Davido, from Akazi to Davido. Davido is really OBU.
I hear you.
We'll see you around. Let's share with you what's happening later today on News Central.
Later today at 11 a.m., Business Edge comes up.
2 p.m. West African time, Village Square, Africa.
And 7 p.m. we do have Politics HQ headquarters, definitely here on News Central. So if I were you, I'll tune in. Don't miss it for a thing. And make sure you keep tabs with us and you stay with us. You never get bored because there's so much to learn about Africa. So much. I was reading about the Liberian, the war in 1989. Charles Taylor. It was so much. So much to take in.
And that's what we do. We bring you all these stories, and we'd like you to join us again tomorrow. Have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday.
Bye.
I'm Olive Emodi.
And I'm Joe Hansen. See you at 9.
Au revoir.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
For the protesters who took part in the revolution that ousted Sudan's military ruler of 3 decades, Omar al-Bashir, the civilian government they dream of still proves elusive. After only 18 months of civilian government, a military coup took place in October 2021, and a new military junta has remained in authority ever since. An elected democratic administration have control over the military, according to Mohammed Ali, the leader of the nearly daily rallies in Khartoum.
I mean, the military authority should not be independent and isolated. This is the essential step to guarantee the process of democratization. People must believe in this.
Months ago, the military government said that it would implement a transition to civilian rule roadmap. Politicians participating in the negotiations observed in March that a draft political agreement to bring that to bear was scheduled to be signed on April 6, but was abruptly postponed.
This broad-based government, we need it. Actually, we need it desperately for the success of the coming interim period. Plan B, we might look into having caretaker government for short period, 1 to 3 months. Meanwhile, we try to settle our disputes.
Political forces need to sit around the table and find a way to form that civilian government. And I don't think that's impossible. We are close now.
However, the demonstrators argue that
conflict region, it's becoming very, very devastating and very scary.
the international community has also expressed alarm at the rising tensions and called for a renewed push towards civilian rule to resolve the situation. Ni Omoni, reporting for News Central.
Thanks for staying with us this morning as we bring to you the latest in the African news and stories. I am Joe Hansen. Welcome to News Now. We begin this hour in Southern Africa. President of the Union of the Comoros, Azali Assoumani, has condemned plans by France to expel Comorians living illegally on the island of Mayotte. Assoumani, who says Comoros is against the operation, adds that authorities have initiated discussions with France. He says he believes dialogue could be a better response than expulsion.
Les moyens d'aller l'arrêter par la force. Là, on va se prendre, on va prendre avec les autorités pour essayer de voir en fait comment ils peuvent arrêter ça. Mais en tout cas, on ne va pas rester insensible à ça. On est contre cette opération. On a engagé des discussions avec notre partenaire la France, qui est un partenaire, et qu'on pense que le dialogue, ça peut apporter une réponse positive plutôt que des actions comme ça. Donc j'espère, mais nous, jusqu'alors on ne sait pas, mais j'espère que ça va être annulé pour qu'on puisse discuter, voir les voies et moyens, à ce qu'effectivement la paix et la sécurité règnent dans notre pays, et dans la région. On a tout intérêt à ça.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is once again hot seat, this time with the parliament over his delays in appointing a board to manage the country's public broadcaster. The South African Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies has urged Ramaphosa to appoint a new South African Broadcasting Corporation Board of Directors immediately. The public broadcaster has been without a board for more than 5 months. In December, nominations for the new board were accepted, but Ramaphosa has yet to finalize the appointment. Last month, however, Ramaphosa wrote to Mpisa Nkukula urging that Parliament to reconsider the list of names originally handed to him and questioning the constitutionality of the process after 12 names were submitted to him, with 3 extra names also chosen. As a result, the committee sought independent legal opinion on his correspondence. Legal analysts also had spoken about the situation. West African bloc ECOWAS has condemned the kidnapping of 80 people last week in northern Nigeria, many of those abducted in Zamfara state were women and teenagers who had been collecting firewood. In a statement, ECOWAS called for children's release. Zamfara has suffered many kidnappings, often for ransom, by armed criminal gangs. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday departed for Saudi Arabia on an official visit. The visit is Buhari's last trip to the kingdom as president. During the visit, the president, who is being accompanied by his aides, will perform also Umrah, the lesser pilgrimage. The president last performed the Umrah in 2021. Buhari will leave office as president on May 29 after completing his 2 terms as president. The United Kingdom has expressed its commitment to continue to partner with Nigeria's military in tackling insecurity, especially in the Gulf of Guinea and the Sahel. This was revealed by the United Kingdom Minister for Armed Forces, James Heppy, as he spoke to newsmen in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, commending the relationship and collaboration between the militaries of both nations, which has spanned long before Nigeria's independence.
The reason that our armed forces remain so close is because that friendship has been renewed again and again and again since the point of independence, because we have worked together to address challenges like maritime insecurity in the Gulf of Guinea or terrorism in the Lake Chad Basin, and we will continue to do so. Now, a lot of that is connected to training together and sharing tactics and techniques for how to deal with the problems of the day, but also it's to do with a shared inventory. It's to do with operating the same kit. You know, that combination of training together, developing capability together, added to our shared history, is what makes the relationship between the UK and Nigerian armed forces so strong, and I have every confidence it will continue to be strong for many decades to come.
Members of Nigeria's parliament have commenced hearing into claims of crude oil racketeering by Nigeria's national oil company. This was during the commencement of an investigative hearing on the alleged theft of over $2.4 billion in oil revenue since 2014 by Nigeria's House of Representatives. Our correspondent, Marvelous Obomanu, compiled this report.
The public hearing is expected to unearth allegations of oil theft and crude oil racketeering. The figures, put at over $2.4 billion in revenue, represents proceeds from the illegal sale of about 48 million barrels of crude oil to China by the nation's national oil company in 2015. The investigation, which was prompted by a whistleblower revelation, claims this ground-scale oil theft has been ongoing for almost 9 years.
The committee has over the few months interacted with major stakeholders and MDAs with a view to obtaining detailed records and inventory of intelligence received under the whistleblower policy, recoveries made, disbursement of the statutory percentage to whistleblowers, the process of management of recovered funds, current status of non-cash assets, procedures for disposal of non-cash assets, if any, and all other activities connected to the management and utilization of recoveries achieved under the policy.
Several of those invited to provide information on the alleged oil deal, however, did not attend with adequate documents to assist the investigation. But the nation's Code of Conduct Bureau, which was present, expressed worry, saying a similar investigation in the past had also revealed the same findings.
From 2011 to 2014, the total amount sold was 123 billion 981 million 183,703 dollars. The CBN confirmation money received is 42 billion 749 million 912,410.
In a related development, some aggrieved members of a whistleblowers network expressed worry over the ongoing investigation. They say despite providing information on the alleged oil deal, they have not been invited to participate in the hearing.
The whistleblower which finished Honorable Mark Wheeler the information, Graham, the 48 million barrel crude oil stolen, did not file any petition on the National Assembly giving rise to the hearing. Neither were there any call at witness to testify during the hearing. Wheeler reported ad hoc committee hearing is a scam.
The lawmakers say they will use the opportunity of the hearing to give legislative backing to the nation's whistleblowers policy. They say the current hearing would provide more information on providing a final for the nation's Whistleblower Act. Marvelous Obomman, reporting for News Central.
Well, let's stay in Nigeria. The Nigeria Police Force has dismissed accusations of being partisan in its management of the ongoing crisis rocking the Plateau State House of Assembly. The State Commissioner of Police, while speaking to newsmen at the State Police Command headquarters in Jos, the Plateau State capital, north-central Nigeria, says the police sealed the premises of the State Assembly complex to forestall the breakdown of law and order.
Yeah. What members of the State House of Assembly turned the Plateau State House of Assembly either into a boxing ring or a battlefield. The deployment of police personnel to the State House of Assembly wasn't targeted against any person or group of persons. It was merely preventive to maintain peace, protect lives and properties, and to prevent the breakdown of law and order.
Well, staying in the region, the United Nations has urged Mali's junta to expedite the process of returning to civilian rule by early 2024, as promised. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in a Security Council report, also expressed concern about the persistent violence against civilians and problems implementing a peace agreement between the state and armed groups in the north. The Security Council is scheduled to meet Wednesday. Mali has been battling a security and political crisis since separatist insurgencies broke out in the north in 2012. The violence has spread to the center of the country and to neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger and continues to move south. Since 2020, Mali has been ruled by a military junta which has bowed to international pressure to return to democracy by March 2024. Well, coming up next, UN condemns call for diplomats' death in Sudan. We have this story and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You wake up to a lot of stories about Africa.
But this is where you get the story straight.
Where we explore different angles because we understand our stories.
There's that passion when it's your perspective and not a distant perception.
I know you hear it a lot, but it's true. Nobody can tell your story better than you.
That's what we do.
All day, every day.
On News Central TV.
Our African stories by Africans for Africans.
News Central now continues in East Africa. Kenya's main opposition party on Tuesday announced plans for a public rally, but said it remains committed to easing political tension through dialogue after anti-government protests turned violent last month. Azimiola Umoja, the party of veteran opposition leader Raila Odinga, says it would hold direct engagement with the public, including a rally in Nairobi as it prepares for talks with the government. The ruling coalition has also named individuals who will represent the government in negotiations with the opposition. The 7-member team was named on Tuesday after a meeting chaired by President William Ruto. The opposition had announced its team last week. Earlier this month, Ruto allowed for dialogue with the opposition on electoral reform, but within Parliament. Head of Insight Information and Intelligence at WS Insight Kenya, Declan Garvin, shared his thoughts on this latest development.
I'm not certain what the actual reason is, but certainly the reason that he has articulated to Parliament is that he questions whether, from a legal perspective, Parliament had...
This is really notable and important progress, particularly when you consider the kind of feelings of the political and security situation in Kenya spiraling only a few weeks ago. So the fact that we've got teams from the government and from the opposition who are going to try to thrash out details around some kind of political solution is kind of precisely the direction this needs to go. But there's a lot that we need to see how it unfolds before we kind of feel like we're back on the right track. It's very different than what we were seeing a couple of weeks ago, where there was a call for mass demonstrations across the country, and specifically for people to kind of descend on the central business district as well as State House. What we're seeing on the discussions of a rally this weekend is in the Kamakunji area. It's an area where there's kind of showgrounds and where people will often kind of meet and have Harambes and other rallies. So the overall context is quite different. And the way the opposition is framing this particular rally is that it's kind of a town hall where they can kind of receive information from the public and kind of trial balloon issues.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has visited a camp for internally displaced people in Baidoa, Somalia. He spoke with the families living in makeshift shelters in the camp through a translator. Guterres also appealed to the international community to solve the humanitarian crisis in the Somali camp by creating conditions to build resilience of their population.
It's time for the international community to mobilize much more support to the Somalis to guarantee the security of their people and fight terrorism. Support to the Somalis to solve the humanitarian drama that we can witness in the camp like this. And support to the Somalis in creating the conditions to build resilience of their populations and to create a path of development for the people of Somalia. Well, first of all, I am encouraged by the fact that we have now the capacity that the Somalis have developed to start increasing their possibility to liberate areas in relation to Shabab. They have done it already in other parts of the territory. I hope they will be able to do it also here. But what has been dramatic is 5 consecutive years of drought. The people I met have lost their livestock, have lost their property, have lost everything. So this combination of terrorism and drought, largely caused by climate change, creates a perfect storm for the people of Somalia and requires massive support from the international community. We have 6 million people in need of assistance. We have launched an appeal to the international community. Only 15% of that appeal has been funded until now. The international community has been absent-minded in relation to the drama of the people of Somalia. It's time to look seriously into these people that is suffering too much.
The United Nations says it is deeply concerned by a video of a man publicly asking for a religious edict to kill the UN chief in Sudan. In an outburst, the man accuses a UN Special Representative Volker Perthes of interfering in the country's politics. The UN has urged the Sudanese authorities to investigate the incident. Sudan is in political crisis after leaders this week failed to beat a deadline to form a civilian-led government. In North Africa, we understand that police in Tunisia's capital have forcefully removed homeless sub-Saharan Africans who had been camping outside UN buildings in Tunis for several weeks. Several journalists have been tweeting from the scene of the UN Refugee Agency UNHCR office, saying a camp where migrants had gathered has been completely destroyed. Many Africans have been seeking repatriation after recent remarks by President Kais Saied unleashed a wave of violence against them. Saied denies inciting hatred by saying they were part of a conspiracy to change the demographic composition of the North African country, which has a predominantly Arab Muslim culture.
اي انا نسكن قدام المنظمه هذه معناتها عندي فوق 25 يوم معناتها الرا فيها فهمت وعملنا اللي صارت فهمت ومشاو والسنه صارت اما فاسون مش عاديه اللي صار توا حاجه مش عاديه فهمت مسكرين علينا احنا لا نجموا نرقدوا لا نجموا نعيشوا كي العباد لا نجموا نخرجوا.
Je trouvais que mes frères ils étaient là, ils sont en train de bloquer la porte et tout. J'ai appelé les responsables d'IASR. Je leur ai dit faites attention, vous êtes en train de vous amuser avec le feu. Ces deux mois, je les vois ici, ben, ils peuvent exploser à tout moment. Donc c'est pas bon. Essayez de sortir, parler avec les gens, faites-les tourner et puis donnez-les un rendez-vous. Bon, ils ont essayé, mais...
Let's go to Central Africa now, where Chad's ambassador to Germany has been expelled. This comes in a retaliatory move after the Central African nation kicked out the European nation's ambassador last week. Germany's foreign ministry on Tuesday said Chad's Miriam Ali Musa has to leave the country within 48 hours. German ambassador to Chad, Jean-Christian Gordon Crick, left the country last Saturday after the military government expelled him. Chad ordered Crick out of the country for what it said was due to his impolite attitude and lack of respect for diplomatic customs. We're still ahead. Here on News Now, Mexican Immigration Agency chief to be charged for prison fire outbreak. We have the details to this story and more. Stay with us.
Still very high and not affordable, and some subsidized products that should be directed to the working and middle classes of Tunisians still cannot be found at the market.
المتوسطة متوانسة ما زال التونسي ما يخلطش عليها وما يلقاهاش في نقاط البيع.
فما عديد من العوامل اللي خارج على نطاق الداخلي.
There are many external factors that contributed to the rise of prices.
تعرفوا ما يخفيش عليكم اللي الأزمة.
Experts say increasing domestic food production will increase availability and reduce food prices before the end of the year. But during Ramadan and in the coming months at least, citizens in Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia will continue to face hard choices at the grocery store. Omolola Ololade reporting for News Central.
Africa is rising. Again, we hear our sounds echo on the other side. Afrobeat and Afropop reinvented, hip life brought back to life, new energy infused into Kwaito and Kwela. Africa is balling. Every stroke, every shot, every raise, we find our place at the top. Taking the helm of real power, new hopes for democracies. A breed of entrepreneurial tigers, audacious storytellers, and a promising generation raring to go. Truly, Africa is rising. And this is where the stories that define our continent live.
Women worldwide menstruate as part of a cycle of fertility that comes every month. Every 28 days, some women bleed for 2 days or a full week. They may get cramps or not. If they do, they could be mild or extremely painful. And unfortunately, many countries in Africa are deeming it a curse where girls cannot go to school or women remain employed. On today's Our Voices, we'll examine what women and girls need to succeed in life amid the challenges associated with this biological process and breaking the old ideologies of a curse. We will look at the burden females endure as they navigate their monthly cycles. What can families, friends, communities, and governments do to have a more open discussion on this subject? Hello, I'm Oriani Tangishaka, and this is Our Voices. Let's begin in Kenya, where a lawyer is working to keep teenage girls in school by supplying the menstrual health product that often their families cannot afford. Brenda Mulinya has our story.
Fanny Kwega and her team of volunteers make their way into an informal school